All right. Hey, everyone. So this is the final brainstorming session for the topic of bringing in a new legal framework for drug regulation in India. So we've had three sessions in the past month. This is the fourth and final session where we are discussing how to wrap up this whole thing that we have done in the past month. So I'm going to quickly summarize what we have achieved so far. I mean, initially we talked about how do we approach this problem even. So we talked about how to look at the problem, and then we arrived at the classification system and recordings of us going over the summary of this is in the past event. And we also talked about how to classify various pathways of impacts on of the drugs and classes which are ranked based on the severity. So class 1 is the most severe, and class 2 is less severe, and then class 5 is the least severe. And we were also looking at examples of various products and what kind of classes they follow. And then we talked about what is the kind of restrictions and regulations for each class. So we didn't go over the violations and punishments. I think we just added this right here, so we may not even need this. So the point of this session is basically to simply look at the things that we didn't use and then just wrap up the whole thing. So we've done with the second session, wrapping the classification and then legal framework. And now we're just looking at things that we need to remove and then tidy it up and then have it as a final thing so that when somebody comes into this document on their own, they can easily understand what's going on. So Sandeep, I think Sandeep and Saurabh, you guys are the only ones here. Anything that you would like to add on top of what I've just said?
Yeah, it should provide it should have a easy enough way of understanding. Even it should be very easy to understand. At least, I mean, if it's not, they're going to understand the in depth
Yeah.
of it. At least it should provide a gist of what the document is trying to
Yeah.
address.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we need to make sure that we wrap up the whole thing and present it in a neat way, because it's a lot of complexity here. I think so. Let's actually see some of these things that we've added here. Caffeine, individuals, so actually we'll just create a separate thing called, because we don't want to lose some of the work. Maybe it's relevant in terms of coming in later on. If we look at some of these things, we can have some context. Um, Unused work. So this stuff is all unused work. Yeah, we'll just summarize this further down. And this is also just for a scrap here. So factors concerning drug regulation. It's basically going to be like a summary of what we have done here. So when somebody first comes into this document, they'll see. Let's just add in summary, or like an abstract. Okay, that's like a better word. This document is intended to provide a cursory overview of all the challenges associated with the legal existing legal framework for drug regulation in India. Provide a breakdown of new changes to bring about a fundamentally new framework for drug regulation. Details on how to further expand the work presented here. Okay, so this is like, we'll just like add all these things, talking about like what are the things that we are trying to solve, essence of the problem statements, challenges in existing legal framework for drug regulation. So first thing is arbitrary, or at least seemingly arbitrary, rules concerning drugs. No transparency in the drug policies. Drug policies are not comprehensive in the understanding of the impact of the drugs in the framing of the policies. Insufficient understanding of laws surrounding drugs by both the larger public and law enforcement. Did you say larger public? Aspects of the solution. So for the solutioning, what we did was we first came up with the classification system, a fundamentally new way of classifying drugs that encompasses an impact based classification where each product is analyzed with various impacts it has on the individual and the society, classifying does encompasses an impact-based classification where each product is analyzed with regards to the various impacts it has on the individual and society, such as severity of impact on physical body, scope of dependence, cost to society, etc. This is just to give an example of like what are the things we're looking at. And class-based approach to grouping drugs based on the identification of various drug impact pathways that are grouped into classes based on the severity of the impact on society. Each drug is classified into the class. Each assigned the class that is the most severe of the drug's impact pathways. And then classifying regulations, punishments based on the class of the drug. I think this is it. What to do from here. So before we actually talk about this, let's actually clean up some of the existing ones. So we had this thing. Let's quickly look at some of these things. Nitroglycerin. I don't know. These things are, let's say, examples. Remember, we were talking about like, putting these things into several categories, right? So I think we need to break this down into a little bit further things. By the way, I'm talking the whole time. I want you guys to also like offer inputs. Are you guys like following through what I'm doing? Is it making sense?
Yeah, you can. I think you can put some. I don't know. Not an abstract. Maybe like a quick overview of. If you can. I don't know. Mm, I mean, everything you wrote is like okay. You can read it and understand, but it hasn't given the actual how it actually works, which we probably haven't figured it out. I'm not sure, but again,
Yeah. So in the usage parameters, I want to include one of these things. See some of these things, right? Frequency of exposure, period of exposure, scope of impact. I think these two, we need to like move it over here. I think
It could make much more sense if take something like alcohol and then take one example and
yeah,
build the document around it.
exactly. We need to create some examples things. Yeah, it's a very good point. I think this was just the backup, right? Yeah. Frequency of exposure, period of exposure. So this thing has to be deleted. Scope of impact, balance of effects. 2, 3. Impact dimension. So this one would be, instead of drug classification, so it will just be impact. Um, hmm, Impact areas,
It's not impact areas, I guess.
impact measurements. Because we're measuring different aspects of the, but this impact dimension is also kind of confusing with that.
Can put them parameters of something. Yeah,
Parameters
parameter.
of impact. And this one will be dimensions of impact. Consumption parameters, parameters of consumption, or consumption parameters. So we can take one example out of this and then create this, but yeah, this stuff is, I don't know exactly how to present this. This one, I think I have an idea. So basically what we'll do is like, we'll just like create copies of this. And then inside of that, you can simply have like lines like drawn from different colors. So let's remove all of these things. Like for example, we just like have the object here. So alcohol, let's say that somebody is drinking low, they're not drinking, they maybe like drinking once a month. Okay. Maybe like a couple of beers once a month or something like that. And period of exposure, they've been drinking for like, let's say, many years. And, or actually, let's start with a very extreme example. This person is like drinking every day and they've been doing it for like many decades now. And what is the impact it has on the physical system? So here, obviously, you'll have like, effects. It's not just physically, it affects only the individual. I mean, there are like other areas of impact, like psychologically or financially, they're doing things. But physically, it affects only the individual. It's not like if you drink and I'm living next to you or something, it's gonna impact me anything. And then we have balance of effects. Definitely, it's negative. But you could argue that somebody says that like drinking red wine in limited quantities is
No, it is actually been proven as a myth
okay.
multiple times.
Okay then.
As long as you have alcohol,
Mm,
see, when you consider anything,
mm,
whatever, let's say if an alcohol has 8% of, let's say beer
mm,
has 8% of alcohol, right?
mm,
So whatever it is, 92% of you're consuming, obviously
mm,
doesn't have any effect on you, or maybe
mm.
it has a positive effect on you. But we are
Okay.
exactly talking about what is that 8% of alcohol does to you.
Right.
Maybe the 90% of wine is good for you because it's grape juice, right? So, but the 10% of alcohol is what is actually is we are that is the part of the drug, right?
Yeah. So okay. So balance is definitely negative. So we'll look at. So they're not gonna. I mean, are they gonna die if they consume this? Probably, right? Their liver damage happens and all that stuff.
Yes.
Um, and permanence of effects. See, probability of impact is also there. I think this has to be the first thing that we need to look at. Probability and then severity. Has a moderate to high chance of impact. I mean, I honestly don't know exactly what is the data on like how often people get um, cancer or something from drinking. And then the impact is fatal. And then the permanence of effects are permanent, right? If you have like a severe, liver damage, then this happens. Likelihood of dependence created by effects. This is certain, right? It depends on the person, right? It's a high thing. Specificity of impact affects nearly all people except some, because maybe some people don't have the dependency for alcohol.
They
Cost
don't
is
usually, maybe they are not addicted to it, but it's just a part of their social life. It's
yeah.
just
Cost to
even they
society
can
is
stay out from it.
What do you think about cost to society? If one person drinks this thing, it's not like it is.
I don't
It
think
is.
drinking has a lot of cost to society as long as they are that if they are acting under influence, right? But not a
Oh yeah.
lot of people act under influence. I think it could be even low, maybe. In at least depends on the country to country again. So
Yeah. Okay. Cost to society, and then reversibility of effects is, I think,
kind of
low, right?
low.
Low.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now, based on this, right? I mean, whatever we've added right now, this should basically give us a certain sense of, okay, how would you look at this pathway, right? This pathway is basically, I would call this an example of a certain pathway, actually. So what I was thinking is that we'll mark this pathways as different color coded. That way it'll show like where it is following, right? So this could be just be like red. Let's say this is the highest, right? I think what we can do is we can just like mark the pathways for extreme use and the low use, and depending on that we can come to a conclusion about the class. See, if I'm using a certain product very in low doses, like extreme low doses and all that, and if I'm still getting an incredible negative impact, then that should be a reason for us to classify this, right?
Yeah.
I think we need to have like a quantification as well. Like, even though we are doing it like more or less like a subjective basis, because these are all subjective decisions that we just made.
Yeah.
But
See, it's all about like, let's say it's all relative, right? I
mhm,
mean, if we, let's say hypothetically, if you are able to plot this pathway for almost,
mhm,
let's say, 50 different type of
mhm,
no, drugs,
mhm.
then the relativity comes in, and then we'll be able to put some extremes, right? There is, until unless we have that data points, we don't know what is the extremes, what are the limits of the subjectivity, sorry,
Exactly.
objective.
Exactly. So this product for this one, we're just like looking at alcohol as a thing, and let's look at the lowest thing. Okay, so let's say that here we're having the low thing. Mm, period of exposure is also low, and from here, if you look at the physical dimension, impact parameters, scope of impact is like affects part of the individual. I don't know. What do you think about like the lowest impact? Like if somebody is having like once a month they're drinking alcohol, would you say no scope or affects a part of the individual? I don't think it is any effect, right?
Most of the human beings have their own repair mechanism, right? If
Yeah.
something is like, I don't know, if body can recover
Mm,
itself and repair itself, so if it is low enough, I don't think it is going to have any lasting effects, especially if it is like, negligible, like they have taken it slowly or with the food or something like that. It's
yeah.
usually doesn't have a lot of permanent effects on a
Yeah.
human body.
Permanence effects are short term. Scope of dependence low. Specificity of impact is affects only those specific pre-existing conditions. And then cost to society is like, I would say none. And reversibility of effects is like high. It's extremely reversible.
Yeah.
So for the low, we need to. So you see this. This is a problem. So the pathway name would simply be C1, C2, something like that. And mm, I2 is 2. I3. So 3 is 2, and then 4 is 1, 5 is 1, 6 is 2, 7 is 2, 8 is 1, 9 is 5. Okay, this is the lower pathway. Least impact pathway. We take alcohol as a product. Maybe we can just have this on the side here in a new section. Most impact pathways. So you have 3. C1 is 3. C2 is 4. C2 is 4. 1, 3, 3. Wait. 1 is 3. 2 is 3. 4 is 3 is 4. 4 is 5. 5 is 5. 6 is 4. 7 is 4. 8 is 2. And then 9 is 2. Okay. I don't know why it's looking bigger here. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, the digit one takes less space.
So I think so we have to do something similar for each one, right? Like emotional and all this stuff. We have to do 2 pathways for each modality. One is the most and the least. But this is just an example. We are not like giving everything right now. Just like this is an example.
Yeah.
I think if you do it like this, right, the example alone tells you what is the thing that you're doing.
Yeah, that's mostly self-explanatory.
Yeah,
If an
yeah,
example is
exactly.
good enough, it usually gives a lot of context.
Yeah. And but what about the examples for the classes classifications here? Um, I
See,
think you
that's
can.
what, right? Without enough data, we can only guess if it is has to be classified, or what are the maybe what are the parameters that affect the classification. That's what matters, because if caste society is what matters, or
Mhm,
that is how we classify it. But generally we have some some parameters which are very vital. The first thing is the reversibility, right? I think that should
mhm,
be the, because let's say if someone did go into this, and then if, of course, if you want to reverse it, is it even possible? And how
mhm,
likely is it to be that the dependency on the drug
mhm,
and the cautious society? I think these three are the parameters that have a very high say on the classification, and rest of them are like they have a lot of variables, right? If is
mhm.
it is it a disturbance to self or the family or the society? Is like it depends on a lot of other variables, but there are some things that are usually universal, like dependency, reversibility, and cost to society, I think. So these are the parameters that should be able to decide the class.
Right. That's a good point. Dependency, reversibility, and cost to society. Yeah, because that's how they are also doing it. The schedule, the US schedule, that's what they're also doing. Um, Actually, today, right, I don't have a lot of time. I need to go in a few minutes. But we'll just quickly, yeah, this stuff, I think I'm just going to move it here. What I want to do is like basically just summarize the thing as to like describe what is going on here and then just let this speak for itself. I think we can just like delete this stuff.
Yeah, you can strip it down to the you can just delete all the complexities inside it. And I think one example well explained is good enough to
Yeah,
draw down other. You can leave it to the reader
yeah,
to contemplate how it could affect.
yeah. I think this is actually a good exercise so far because like a lot of the times I make a mistake in sort of like thinking that I have to make it perfect, otherwise it is not going to work. But you know, this brainstorming session has been very kind of challenging in a lot of senses. And I've been able to do a lot more than what I would do on my own, because there is a community of people involved here, and we are talking, and we are doing this together. It actually makes things
Yeah,
easier.
we usually have a tendency to go to the pros and cons, and then we try to arrive on our subconscious level. Okay, this is how it works.
Mm.
But and as long as until unless we do it,
Mm.
firsthand,
Yeah,
we may
exactly.
not be able to contemplate what are the nuance to it.
Yeah. Path Pathways of impact. So here we'll just add a note from whatever you were saying, which is, I think we'll just have a descriptive thing on each section here.
Yeah.
That should be good enough. Here we list out the pathways of impact for various modalities and then identify the least impact pathway and the most impact pathway for each modality, and use that to classify the drug into various classes depending on which drugs have a cumulative high impact on three critical impact parameters. I think severity also something that needs to be included, because if people are taking crocodile,
Yeah.
right, it's like
I think severity is directly proportional to reversibility. If I'm not wrong,
Mhm.
maybe not maybe not directly, but it has some causality to it, I
Yeah,
guess.
you're right. You're right. You're right. So scope of dependence, reversibility of impacts, cost to society. Any drug with the, I think, should we go for the lowest or the highest one? Which impact pathway is the most important? Lower, least impact pathway or the most impact pathway?
Because we are looking for the most impact pathways. If it is the least impact pathways,
No, saying that, like, for example, the least impact pathway itself is should not be beyond this.
oh yeah, okay, yeah, yeah.
Least impact pathway beyond certain minimum accepted threshold. Um, it must automatically qualify. I don't know. How do we even use that information, basically, right?
I mean, if it is the least impact pathway, you know, you set a threshold, right? If it
Mm.
meets the threshold, then it automatically goes into class 3 or class 2 or something like that.
Yeah, but it's kind of arbitrary. Any
Of course,
drug
it
with the
is
least,
arbitrary.
yeah, it must automatically qualify. Um,
Then there is a thought exercise that we are doing. Again,
yeah.
for doing for classifying any of these, we need the data, right? We need to have
Mm.
we need to put all the data points into it. Then only we'll be able to probably have a clear, you know,
Mhm.
distinguishing between what is what.
Yeah. So any drug. Just like keep it like kind of like vague here, just to.
Yeah.
I think this part is self-explanatory. I mean, we already have notes here for each dimension.
Yeah.
This part is explained, and then pathways. These are examples of pathways. So we'll just like add that as a note here saying. And class based. So we can just say examples of I don't know why it doesn't. Okay, I think we're done, man. What to do from here? How to use this information? So this document is not meant to be a comprehensive outline, comprehensive policy document, but rather as a um, summary of the brainstorming for a better legal framework. It can be used as a starting point for further research and refinement based on the desired outcome. I think that's it, right?
Yeah.
Wow. Congratulations. Thank you so much, Sandeep. I think you've been very consistent in contributing to this.
Well,
So yeah, man, I think we're good. These recordings will prove as documentation for these things. We'll just like add that in here. Please use the recordings of these brainstorming sessions available at the YouTube channel of the Debate Club. Link available at Right. I think we can close it. I have to go to another call right now.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Sandeep.
Yeah.
Have a wonderful day. Bye.
Good night.